action in Congress to combat and to, get in the way of whatever goals that may be accomplished. Passed 2 bills yesterday, which of course will be vetoed should they make it through the Senate. Congress being under Republican control, that's a lot different than when you were helping get the Energy Policy Act of 2005 through. What do you think we can realistically expect from Congress as far as intervention in local crises like the one here in Flint and in the larger problem of climate change overall?
Well, I think you make a good point when you sort of bring up the issue of sort of the local dimension of these problems. Because, again, I was on the staff of the Senate for 20 years. I worked on 2 big energy bills. The Energy Policy Act of 2005 was actually a bill that we passed when the Republicans were in the majority. The Democrats, which I am one of, we were in the minority. And then in 2007, we passed another big comprehensive energy bill when the Democrats were in the majority in Congress. And so, both those bills happened because we were able to find bipartisan common ground. And energy is kind of an interesting sort of policy area to be in, because on one hand, people like to try to portray it as being this really intensely partisan Republican versus Democratic dynamic. And of course, there's always a partisan element to anything that happens in Washington. A lot of people make their money in their careers trying to sort of find and exploit partisan differences of one kind or another. But when you look at the politics of energy, when it gets down to specifics, you find that the politics of energy in the United States is actually pretty local. I mean, if you're from the Pacific Northwest, for example, you care a whole lot about the Bonneville Power Administration, which runs all the big hydroelectric dams on the Columbia River. The Bonneville Power Administration is the reason why industry in the Pacific Northwest has very low electricity rates, right? And whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you care a lot about the economic implications of that and the policies that go along with that with energy. And you can just go around every other part of the country, and you can find places where Republicans and Democrats can find common ground. I think it's unfortunate that they called off and have passed these 2 resolutions to try to stop the president's clean power plan, which he's put in place, and which states are now in the process of sorting through and seeing how they're going to implement it. I think everybody expects that that is sort of an exercise that certainly sends a message, but doesn't have a real world effect, because those resolutions only work if President Obama signs them into law, and he's not likely to sign it into law. Resolutions that overturn a regulation that he has spent several years on, that has been the subject of an incredible amount of public engagement, millions of public comments reviewed, a tremendous amount of analytical and economic analysis to find sort of the most flexible way of addressing our greenhouse gas emissions in the power sector. So I think people understand that this is sort of a thing that has to happen, but it doesn't really change the reality that this rule is in place, and it provides a lot of opportunities for states like Michigan to sort of step up to the plate and come up with some really interesting and creative ways of addressing the question of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions